So what I wanted to do is give you a little idea of how you can use the StatHelper when doing homework, tests, studying, etc. Let's first go through just the layout, where different things are. Then what I'll do is I'll actually show you how to do a problem using the StatHelper. So when you first log in, what you're going to do is you're going to see this welcome screen. What you'll notice is to the left, you have all your different modules. Since I'm going to be showing you a hypothesis test today, let's go there just so I can show you the layout. So if we come over here and we click hypothesis test, what we're going to do here is we're going to see that in the main screen here, we have options for a lot of different types of tests. Our very first section that we see is a notes section, which just gives you some notes. We have a which test section, which tells you a little bit how to decide on which test to use when. And then we get right into the actual tests. So what I'm going to show you today is a one mean Z or one sample Z test. So let's take a look at that. The first thing you notice here is when you click on that tab, you also have other tabs that come up. The first thing you should really be paying attention to here is this box with what we call the start button and the reset button. These are going to be basically where you're going to get things started, and then if you want to redo something or do another problem, you're just going to click reset the inputs and then everything will go back to normal. So the first thing you should think about doing is clicking the start button to see what's there. Notice you get this table that comes up, and this is where you put in all of your data. You've got this run button, cancel button, and help button. If you click the help button, you'll see that a new window pops open with an example, and it walks you through exactly how to do this. As we start to go through these things, I will go through, use some of the buttons to show you how it works. Let's just hit cancel for now. I'll talk more about what all these tabs are as we go through the problem. So let's click over and take a look at the problem. So this is the problem that I'm going to go through. This is a problem that we're going to need a one sample Z test for. So let's go through it, and then I will show you how to do it in the StatHelper. So you're an engineer testing the thickness of eyeglasses for a supervisor. A sample of 10 lenses yields a mean thickness of 2.95 millimeters. You're told that the true population standard deviation is 0.34 millimeters. The engineer would like the true average thickness of such lenses to be less than 3.2. It also says assume that the underlying distribution is normal. So let me tell you a couple of things here which leads us to a Z-test. In order to do a Z-test on this situation, it of course needs to be some sort of test about a single mean. We need to know that the distribution is normal, and we need to know what the population standard deviation is. We meet these criteria because it says right in the problem that the true population standard deviation is 0.34, and we are going to assume that the underlying distribution is normal. Finally here, we need to understand what direction the alternative should take, and we can get that right from the problem. The statement says the engineer would like the true average thickness of the lenses to be less than 3.2. So what that tells us is the alternative hypothesis here will be that the mean is less than 3.2. Now, let's look at what the questions are asking. Okay, you have 4 parts here, and this is your typical hypothesis test type question. First, it wants you to give the null and alternative hypothesis. Then it wants you to calculate the Z test statistic, and it wants you to show your work. And then finally, using alpha equal to 0.05, it wants you to make a decision based on the hypotheses. And finally, you're going to need to give the answer in terms of the real world. So in this particular case, the StatHelper will basically give you the correct answer for parts A, B, and C. Now, part D, of course, is going to be based on the problem, and that is going to actually be something you're going to have to talk to, but I'll tell you how to find that as well. Now, we are back here at the welcome screen for the StatHelper. Assume that you just signed in. Again, we're going to go over to the left here. where the sidebar where you see all the different modules, we are looking for hypothesis tests. We know we want to do a one sample Z, which takes us here. Okay, now again, we're going to click the Start button. Now this opens up this box that allows us to input all our data. Now the first thing you should be looking at here is what form does your data take on? You have options of summarized data versus raw data. If you're actually given a data set or the actual list of data, that would be raw data. In this particular problem, you're given the summarized data. So we're going to keep it as summarized data. The next one here is you want to input the hypothesized mean. For our problem, we found that the hypothesized mean was 3.2. Next, we need to input the alpha value. We found that our alpha value was 0.05, and that's what this defaults to, so let's keep that as is. The next thing we need to do is select the alternative. Notice when you click the drop down, you have three options. You can put the mean is not equal to the hypothesized mean, the mean is greater than the hypothesized mean, or the mean is less than the hypothesized mean. We know based on the problem that we want less than, so we're going to click less than. Come over to this side. Here we need to input the standard deviation sigma, which was given in the problem as 0.34. We also need to input the sample mean, which was given in the problem as 2.95. And finally, we need to input the sample size, which was given from the problem as 10. Notice here I've basically taken all the information from the problem and put it in its proper place in order to run the analysis. Now, from here, we're going to click Run, and it's going to create the analysis for you. Click Run. Okay, now, I want to talk a little bit about these tabs. The first tab is the Instruction tab. It tells you how to run a one sample mean test using the StatHelper. The next tab is the Description tab. It gives you some information about one sample mean Z tests. The third tab is a worked out example for a one mean Z hypothesis test. I give you a question, I go through what everything is and actually give you the solutions. The next tab is the Descriptive Statistics tab. This is the first tab that will be based on the input that is in the input from the box that you clicked on the Start button. What this does is it gives you the information that you put in just so you can double check. Now, the Work tab is the big hitter here. It will give you all the work you need to go through the entire problem. It not only gives you the null and alternative hypothesis, but it also gives you the test statistic, it gives you the calculations for the p-value, and it also gives you the critical value if you want to use the rejection region approach. So the Work tab is the first tab that I think is really going to be really vital for you in terms of doing this problem. There's also a Z-table tab. Now what this does is it allows you to actually use the Z-table to find the p-value, or if you want to find the critical point through the rejection region method, it actually shows you how to find that. So if you want to practice some of these things, maybe you got to use the Z-table by hand on an exam. This will give you some good practice on how to do it. And then finally, you have an Interpretation tab, which basically tells you what your interpretation should be. Okay? In our particular case, the p-value here is 0.0099 and alpha is 0.05. So what it tells you is since 0.009 is less than 0.05, you're going to reject the null. Okay? So it's literally giving you what your answer should be in terms of the hypotheses. Okay? So again, the Work tab shows you all of the work, and the Interpretation tab tells you exactly how to interpret the results. The only thing here that you're not going to get is the real world. So what you're going to have to do there is go back to the question and take the fact that you rejected the null and put it in terms of the question. And we'll do that now. So here, if we go back to the question, part D said give the answer in terms of the real world. recall that we rejected the null in favor of the alternative. And if we go back to the question says, the engineer would like the true average thickness of such lenses to be less than 3.2. We use that to create the alternative, and we concluded in favor of the alternative. So your answer in terms of the real world would be that there is indeed enough evidence to conclude that the true average thickness of such lenses is less than 3.2. And that's it. Thank you for watching this video.